Good evening. How is everybody tonight? Once again, we have an audience, but they're awfully young, and this story involves some of the kids that are older, the older cousins. So we're going to take some of the really older ones that are actually almost adults now, but they remember Pegasus stories from when they were little. So we're going to take Rachel and Desmond. Oh, Desmond. Desmond's only 10. He gets to go along, but they have to be guarded on this one. So we're taking Desmond and Zach and Demetra, and we're going to take Elizabeth with us this time. She's much older. She's got a couple kids of her own, but she's out. She's been to Montana, where we're going to go. So we're going to take her along, and then we'll take Luke and Des, and he's 10, and he's almost 11. So he gets to go on this one. So here we go. They're in bed, laying there, waiting to see when Pegasus will come. And sure enough, because they can't look out the window, boom, in an instant, they're on his back. And it's gotten cold here in Ohio again. Oh, it snowed today. Oh, and it's March. We were hoping spring was coming, but it snowed. So it's very cold outside, but as always, they're very warm on his back. They're like in a magic bubble, and they're warm, and Pegasus is thrilled to see them, and they laugh and giggle and catch up on what they've been doing. Desmond's been building Legos, and Tia and Lindy have been making noodles, and the other older kids are working and doing all the things that they're doing. So they go from Ohio, and they head up to Minnesota. Well, they head past another town, and they pick up Elizabeth, and she's an adult, so she's got to think, because sometimes the memory fades. It takes her a few minutes to remember Pegasus, and then she begins to remember when she's on, and she can see the night sky and know that they're going to go someplace special. She knew that. So, and then they went on up to Minnesota and picked up Zach and Luke and Rachel and Demetra. Oh, a whole bunch of them on his back this time, with little Luke. Luke's usually in the back with the others, but he's in the front because he's the littlest one today. And they head out west as fast as he can go. Well, not as fast as when he's going back in time, but his tail is out, his wings are broad and wide, and his legs are stroking the air, and his nose is out, and he's just galloping into the wind, and he's going west. And what happens is we get there, and it's morning. It's morning. So early morning, 8, 9 o'clock, and they end up going to a place by Glacier National Park, and it's for whitewater rafting. And so they realize they're going to go whitewater rafting today. And none of them have been whitewater rafting before. I think maybe Elizabeth, maybe Demetra got to go. But anyways, and Paul has been. Well, he's not on the trip. But anyways, we get to this place, and there's a train out front. It's just a train car. And looks like an alpine village, and they go in, and Pegasus sends them in, and he's on his way. They go on in, and their tickets are all paid for, so they get to go. But it's a little bit cold there. It's warmer than it should have been, but this is kind of early spring, so we're in a little different time frame. And they have to put on wetsuits because the water's kind of cold. So they have booties for their feet and these wetsuits so that they can kind of stay warm. And then they get on a bus, and they start traveling up the mountains, up the mountains, up the mountains, up the mountains, on the east side of the park. And they're going up for miles, maybe 10 miles or more. And they get to a place where they're going to put in, which is what you call it when you put the rafts in the water, and they're big rafts that you blow up, and they take them down, and they make sure you have your life jacket on and all the extra equipment, everything you need, and they get in a boat, and they put Desmond up towards the front, where some other people were there with him, but where he could hang on, and all the way around the ropes the rafts are ropes, so you can hang on to. But everybody's got a paddle, and they have to be a part of what they're doing because the water is running kind of fast. In fact, there's some level 4 rapids. But when we get started, we put into the water, and it's just drifting. It's just drifting real mild, and the river is wide, and it's a little bit deeper, but it's not doesn't seem to be real fast, and they're just drifting along, and the guide is in the back and he's steering the boat and the raft, and he's going along, and everybody's excited because they know that water's going to be cold, and so they're going along, and then pretty soon the water starts to ripple and it gets a little faster, and they all start getting excited because of course the raft starts to do this, and then a little bit to one side and a little to another, and the guide in the back is working it so that he can keep the raft smooth where it's going. And then a little while later, now this is earlier in the summer, so there's a lot of snow melt and there's a lot of water coming down. So when the river's wide, it was okay. But as the river begins to narrow, the rapids get more frequent. So we're in ripply water now. Ahead we can see white water, and it's white water. It's all bubbly, so there must be rocks and things underneath. So away they go, up over it, boom, 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 and they're all bouncing like popcorn in it. And the boatman in the back, he's working it, and he keeps them on target. And the river turns this way, and he gets it turns, and he says, "Everybody paddle to the right." And they paddle to the right, and then he says, "Now paddle to the left." And they paddle because they had to help. He couldn't do it alone. They were helping. And Desmond, he had to hang on tight. He didn't have a paddle. He was just hanging on because he's little. And he's got to make sure in this activity he's the little guy. So they get through the first thing, and then they get into smooth water again. Oh, and you could see the sandy bottom. Oh, what a relief, because there was and he said, "Well, hang on," so they can see that the river bends. They go up, and there's trees in front of them because the river's going to go around. And when they go around the river, they see, oh boy, there's rocks, big rocks and boulders. So they're going along, and the water's getting faster, and they're going faster and faster. They're headed straight to a boulder, and they were. Luke and Zach and Demetra and Rachel were going, "Oh no, what are we gonna do?" And they hit it, and they get just about up to it, and they move to the side, and they go around, but the boat tips up on one side, and the water splashes against the boulder and into the raft, and they all get wet, and everybody's yelling and squealing, and it was cold. The water is cold. Now we got some water in the bottom of the raft, so our feet are getting kind of wet, but they're getting cold because we have wet slippers on or booties on. So they're going on down. Well, the water didn't calm down this time, so they're going back, and the river goes back again this way. And now they can see that it's going to go down. So there's water over it, but you can see it's ripply. So they're going to go down the rapids. So now they're going to be shooting the rapids. And he says, "Hang on tight, and when I yell, go to the right, you go to the right. When I yell, go to the left, go to the left, and make sure you're paddling. If I tell you to hold your oar in the water, then you do that." So around the corner they come, and they can see that it's going to drift. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, the raft is jumping up and down. The back is up, the front is up, the side, tip, 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 back and forth. And the boatman in the back, he's working it really good, and he's keeping them right on target in the water. And they see ahead, there's another big ripple, and the front of that raft hits, and it's just water just comes splashing over all of them. Oh my goodness. They were just soaking wet and giggling and laughing because they were wet and cold, but oh my, what a thrill. So they go up, and they see that the river's going to go back around this way. And up on the side is like a cliff. In fact, it's so picturesque and so beautiful. Many movies have been made there because the water is running fast, and people are shooting the rapids in the rafts or in kayaks or whatever they happen to have. We just happen to be in rafts. Okay, so we come around, and then we see there's a drop, and boulders on the bottom. So the boatsman in the back, he says, "Hang on, here we go." And it's like the boat almost goes up, and then boom, crashing down it comes, and it just back and forth, and the water comes up over, and somebody looked up, and guess what was up on that cliff? Somebody taking pictures. So they've got people going, screaming because the water just splashing all over them, and it's cold. So they go, and then, oh, lo and behold, things settle down, and we got water in the raft, and everybody is wet, and they're squealing and giggling, but hanging on tight and working the oars just like they're told. So they go down again, and it gets shallow, but it's ripply. So once again, they're going rippling. So they hit some rapids that were they're level 3s. The one might have been a level 4, but probably not quite, because it wasn't that rough. But they went down, and they had to go. Then they saw a long long set of rapids. Okay? It wasn't, oh, there was a waterfall off to the side, but over here it was just rapids. So they had to steer clear of the waterfall because it was too far down. So the boatsman brought him over here to the right-hand side. And this wasn't just ripple, ripple, ripple. This is like, oh, it went on, felt like for minutes. Boom, boom. So they're banging around and they're popping up out of the boat or out of the thing. Their behinds were off of the boat, and they were in the air, and their feet were flying up and they were flying back, but they all happened to stay in the boat. But the raft, but they stayed, and it just kept going for minutes. It just on and on and on. And then when it narrowed, and they came out, and it shot them out as fast as they could go, and water spraying up over the sides, and then they went into a calm, and things were very, very calm, and everybody just sat back and went, ah, because it was just, oh, it was exhilarating and so exciting, and their guide was so good at what he was doing that he kept them all really safe and taught them and trained them what to do. But they could look up on both sides and see the great mountains in Glacier National Park, the Rocky Mountains, and they were beautiful and high, and you could even see sometimes mountain goats up there, or sometimes dull sheep. And even at one point, the guide said, look quickly, look right up there, and you'll see a bear. And then along the side, because we were clear off to one side, but on the other side in the shallows, where the water was smooth and it was like marshy, yeah, there was a moose, big old moose. He didn't seem to be bothered by us. He just lifted his head and looked at us, then ducked his head clear down in the water to munch the stuff on the bottom, because he wasn't in the river. He was off where it was marshy, and he wasn't afraid of us for some reason. But so we got to see wildlife, and of course there's ducks and geese and all kinds of different birds, and even what was beautiful was, I don't know if they think the river is a highway, which it is, it's a highway of water, but the eagles would sometimes follow along the river, and you could look up, and often it was one that was hunting, and but sometimes it was a pair, and a mom and a dad, a male and female, and they'd come along, and they'd travel along the river and watch. And I don't know, they probably were looking for fish, because we have seen the times where the eagle will come down, touch the top of the water with his claws, and come up with a fish that's flopping around like this. So it's pretty spectacular. Beautiful country, nice and green, beautiful water that's clear and crisp, and all foamy and white when it's coming over the rapids. But cold early in the spring. Well, cold all the time because it's snow melt. So then they got down and drifted. Everybody's still excited, and then they can see that there's a bus up there. The bus had traveled back down and was ready to pick them up. So they had to paddle. Now they had to turn the boat, and they had to paddle into shore. And they got into shore and crawled out. And everybody's just jabbering, but they had to help. They had to get all the equipment and everything and get it out so they could get it loaded back up on the bus. And they all got back on the bus and traveled back to where they had started, back where the chalets were. And what a wonderful time they had. And what they found out was, since Grandma worked there, they could go any time they wanted for free. So you can bet this isn't the last time they're going to go whitewater rafting. I hope you enjoyed it. It really is a true story. They really do go whitewater rafting, and it is beautiful, and it is scary, and it is very, very cold, and the eagles do fly over, and you see the other animals. So I hope you get to experience the national park someday, and I hope you get to go whitewater rafting. It's really a lot of fun. Good night. I hope you have a wonderful night's sleep.